Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to Take Two for this Wednesday, the 30th of January, 2019. I'm Jeannie. I'm so glad to be with you on this hump day. I hope you're having a really good midweek. I hope you had a good beginning, and I hope the end is also going to be equally as good. But right now, while we're in the middle, let's make the best of it, and let's make it a really great day. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit today about reminiscing. Now, as many of you know, with my mother's passing in the past few months, we've had our hands full of trying to organize the family home back in Staten Island and go through belongings and settle my mother's affairs, etc., etc. But you could just well imagine, with my parents having built their house in the mid-50s, how our family were the only inhabitants ever of that house, the only residents who ever lived in it. You can imagine the sorts of stuff. And my mother being well, a lack of a better word, a hoarder that she was, with lots and lots of stuff, being very sentimental, and she just held on to a lot of stuff. You can imagine the things that we went through and are still going through, and some of the stuff that we had to just pack up to look at another time, including a lot of old family photos. Now, you remember back in the day when you would take pictures and get your roll of film and go develop it and come back with a stack of photos and somebody's head is chopped off or somebody had red eyes, all those kinds of things. You just, had to wait and see how they turned out, not like the digital age we're in today. But we did have lots and lots of pictures, and I took photography classes in college, and by doing that, I was able to snap hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of photographs of everything you can imagine and have them all developed, and many of them have survived these many years. Well, as I was going through it, I started reminiscing a little bit. I started, I found some pictures. I'll show you a few of them that I found. I found some pictures of my sister and I when we were little at the kitchen table coloring, and then some pictures of my sister and I with my Nana Pereno, who I love dearly, my grandmother who lived with us. And then this is a really cool one. This is a picture of what our house looked like way back in the day. That same house that's for sale now, that was back in the day. And oh, it did flash back so many wonderful, marvelous memories about the good old days. And that's the funny thing about reminiscing. When you reminisce, a lot of times you think about everything with blinders on. You think of all of it as the good old days, and you forget that there were more things going on in your life besides good stuff back then. But a lot of times when you're reminiscing, you're only thinking about it in good terms. Like, for example, the Israelites, as they were wandering through the desert on the way to the promised land with Moses, and they didn't get everything they wanted exactly the way they wanted it, what did they do? They immediately started complaining, and they had been snatched out of slavery and walked through the Red Sea that had parted for them. They saw miracle upon miracle on their way to something much better. But what were they doing? Why did you take us away from that place where we always had food, we had a roof over our heads, we were safe, we were happy? But the truth of the matter is they weren't all safe and happy. They were slaves, and they had to be taken out of there and go through a period of discomfort so that they could get to something much better. But it's really funny what happens with the mind, because you start imagining things from your past a lot of times, and you only reflect back on the good part, the good old days, as I said. And that's a dangerous trap. So although I like to look at these pictures and remember my grandmother and remember, the house and all of that, and remember my sister and I playing together, let me tell you, we didn't always play together so well. There were times that we had arguments and bicker and, and different things that went on because we were siblings, we were children. And that's what happens when you're kids. You go through stuff. We went through some tragedies in the family. But when we look back, a lot of times we don't want to remember any of that bad stuff. We only want to remember the good old days. So beware, boys and girls, that when you reflect back, try to have some balance in it. And on the and here's just another component that I really want you to concentrate on today, please, because it's not just the good old days, but guess what? There's good new days coming too. So don't be fearful of the future and dread the next bill coming and dread the next task you need to do. Think about good things. Let me tell you, I'll look at something like this and I'll remember that there were good old days, but then I bring some balance, because then I look on my mantelpiece and I see this. And I see Jimmy, and I see Thomas, these beautiful babies, my little nephews who I adore, adore, adore. And I think, you know what? There's good new days coming too. So I want to be balanced. Can I look back on some of these old pictures? Can I leaf through these old albums and remember some fun things? Well, of course I can. But I want to be just as careful to make sure that I remember that some good new days are coming too. Will these children ever be interested in these things from the past? If I showed them a picture like this of my mother when she was in her 20s, would it affect them in any way? Would they say, oh yeah, that's great grandma when she was, Thomas never met my mother. Jimmy only knew her for the first 5 years of his life. So if they saw that picture, would they say, oh, it's great grandma? Or would they just say, oh, that's nice? See, it doesn't really have a big attachment to them, where it might have a little bit more of an attachment with me and my sister. But they're looking, and they will be looking, to the good new days ahead. And why can't we, as older folks, do the same? So don't get stuck in the past and say, oh, back in the day it was this, that, and the other. No, you could remember things fondly, but please remember that it's important. Sorry about that, guys. I think I had a little bit of a glitch there, so please bear with me. All I wanted to say was, remember, good old days is a good thing to remember, but good news days, that's also just equally as important. And again, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jeannie Sigler, Jeannesigler. But also, don't forget to go be a blessing to somebody today, because you might end up being the only one who is. I'll see you tomorrow for Take Two for a Thursday edition. Bye-bye. I love you.